One thing we know for sure about the U.S. political machine, and I'm calling out both sides, no matter who the president is, the government spies on everybody. No matter who the president is, the Fed spends roughly $867 billion on defense. And no matter who the government is, fill in the number. Nobody knows. I'm talking the CIA, NSA. Even though the Constitution says no money shall be appropriated from the Treasury, except that is recorded in a public journal. We have money in these three-letter agencies going in the front door and out the back, and no one knows where it goes. And that's under both presidencies. And, in the last 10 years, we borrow $2 trillion a year. No matter who wins, the government will look the same, I will argue. Both presidents, both parties, and I call it both sides, have spent like drunken sailors. We need to hold these people accountable, and I'm seeing that change now. These problems are so easy to fix, people. They are, and you're seeing it right now. But they don't want to fix these problems over the years, especially the Biden administration. I believe we should have an investigation into every multimillionaire in Congress who has accumulated that wealth on a congressional salary using tax dollars. The Democrats had RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, but they lost them both because they couldn't control them. And that's what the politics is about. They want to control through blackmail. They lost the election due to their own policies, pushing so far left that they lost all common sense. Their obsession with identity politics, radical economic policies, and inability to address rising crime and inflation alienated many voters. They lost me. All we wanted was stability and common sense policies. You morons. Ukraine proxy war. We did this to control the 11 trillion of minerals under the Donbass. Lindsey Graham and other people have said this. The cat's out of the bag. We did this to grind down the Russian war machine on the grist of Ukrainian teenagers. We did this to hand out hundreds of billions of dollars to U.S. hedge funds who are, as we speak right now, carving up the rights to Ukrainians' fertile soil and vast mineral resources. That's why we're there. Follow the money. We don't care about the Ukrainian people. The Biden Democrats and deep state bureaucrats are willing to risk World War III just to cripple Trump's presidency. This is crazy. It's unbelievable. The peace movement must be reawakened. We are seeing that. Prices in the U.S. have grown fast and well above the 2% target for inflation set by the Fed. Some will think and push this nonsense. Our latest, country focus looks at how the central banks can reduce inflation and bring the U.S. economy back in balance. Let me say this. Central banks, and I've talked about this for a long time, are destroying our economics. No central bank wants to stop price inflation. Government interventions through central banks are the most destructive and yet the least understood by most people. Money is credit, and government debt, is fiat currency. Currency depreciation is inflation, and inflation is equivalent to, an implicit default. No interventionist government or central bank wants lower prices because inflation allows the government to increase its power while slowly breaching its monetary commitments, period. We don't care about your effect on inflation. Can you give us a real solution to inflation, border overall economy? Kamala Harris? Many citizens want more government control of the economy to curb rising prices. It is, the worst strategy imaginable. Interventionist governments never reduce consumer prices. Inflation is, the perfect, in my opinion, hidden tax. The government makes the currency less valuable by issuing more units of fiat money, partially dissolves its debt in real returns. And it's just a never ending bunch of bullshit, worthless currency. This is why socialism, in my opinion, and hyperinflation go hand in hand. Government interventions through central banks are the most destructive and yet the least understood by most people. It is bad enough problem to deal with on its own, and even harder to do so, when people fail to, perceive its real damages. Central banks are the source of most evils in the economy. And I would end with this. If you don't know who Thomas Sowell is, you should really read him. He's another big quote of his is that people are always wanting solutions and often from the government. And he says, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. It's so true. People saying increase the minimum wage will improve finances for the lower class. Well, apply the 3 questions and the trade-off, and you'll see that the cost is that many people will lose their jobs and not be hired. Even the CBO asserts that a minimum wage increase of 15 will destroy at least 500,000 jobs. And the evidence also shows that more won't even start to hire or start a business, thereby reducing jobs and opportunities. 100% true. Additionally, costs are also borne by consumers, as companies have to pass the extra mandated labor costs onto the consumer by building the costs into the price of products. So it just creates, ladies and gentlemen, inflation that hits the poor the hardest, and they are no better off. But worse, many people will never get their first job at all. They could have gained experience and skills, but now become employable. So the cost manifests further as crime and welfare. Most real problems are never just one simple solution, and really never just pass a law. Rather, they are just trade-offs and costs, whatever you do, including opportunity costs. So, they think, a lot of detractors of Stoll think he's a right-winger, but he's not. He's just, no one can refute his facts or any evidence against what he says. Just personal attacks with no substance. I defy anyone to refute his research and factual assertions. He's brilliant. He's not perfect, but he's a brilliant man. And remember, Americans, don't have a white supremacy problem. It has a spoiled, unhinged, white liberal problem. We are the freest, least racist country in the world. And one thing I see right now is identity politics is dead. DEI is dead. People are sick of it. And, we're the luckiest country in the world. That's why LeBron James can make $1 billion bouncing a basketball. You're not going to be able to do that in China. You're not going to be able to do that in Iran, Somalia. The problem with Americans is if you have the opportunity, and I know 80% of Americans haven't had the opportunity to have their passports stamped. I've been in 50 plus countries and traveled extensively. And when you see what's going on in the world, you realize how lucky we are. But a lot of Americans haven't traveled. And a lot of this was manufactured bullshit, because divide and conquer is what works, and it gives people at the top more power. Look at Cloward and Piven and divide and conquer. But the good thing about this election, and I would love to see people come together, is that people are sick of the bullshit. They just want to have a little more money in their pocket. They want to be left alone. Big government doesn't work. Okay? Minimum wage is a perfect example. Look at all the companies. Look at all the small businesses what had to go out of businesses, the restaurants that had to cut back. You pass it off to the big box store and you want to tax the big corporations. Walmart and these companies just pass the costs on to the consumer. Capitalism works. It works. Create jobs, Gavin Newsom. Open up California. Just give it 20% capitalism. You have over 300,000 regulations in California, the most regulated state in the country, and it's not working. Bring businesses back. Don't tax the shit out of everyone. Cut government. We don't want to do that. Joe Biden gave 9 million federal workers a 5% raise before the election to get those votes. And as Bigga Ramaswamy said, you just make these people go to work, which I wasn't aware of this. A lot of these people, I guess, 99% work at home. They don't have to go to the office. You make them go to the office, he said 20 to 30% will just quit, which is good. You could cut back. We have over 400 plus agencies, federal agencies. You could really cut them down. It was between 99 and 110. It's a joke. And guess what? You cut those federal agencies, guess what happens to Social Security? Guess what happens is the wages in America goes up. But it's a total grift and con. And government spending waste is a big freaking problem. And I like what I'm hearing from this administration. But my point is, as I started the presentation, we need to hold every Republican, every Democrat accountable, because a lot of these people are crooks. I'm calling out the rhinos and Republicans and Democrats on $174,000 salary. And we got Mitch McConnell worth $100 million. We got Nancy Pelosi worth $100 million. And the list goes on and on. Chuck Schumer, he's worth over 100 mil. 100 mil. Okay, you need a businessman in there to run this. Look what they did to Ross Perot. And the reason they don't, because they don't want someone asking questions. What I'm telling you, and I'm going to talk about this next, it's so easy to solve the problems. Look what Trump's doing. It's not rocket science. And everything's coming around. Look at how everyone in the EU is going to pay their 2% and get in line. Look what Mexico, because everyone needs the United States more than we need them. For Mayorkas to say, oh, we can't do stay in Mexico, they don't want to do it. One phone call, 50% of your trade depends on the U.S. They will get on their knees and bend and kiss the ring. And so will Canada. And look what Justin Trudeau did when he came down from Canada because he's worried about tariffs. And they got a $100 billion deficit. They're ripping us off. And none of it has to happen, but it's kickback city. That's why they do this. That's why they give all the foreign aid, because it's kickback city to special interest and lobbyists. You could fix these problems, but as some very smart people have said, the permanent Washington doesn't care about domestic policy. They don't care about inflation. They don't care about the American people. They don't care about the borders. They only care about what's going on abroad, because foreign wars bring a lot of money, and giving money to countries, they don't care about domestic policy, and that has to change in Washington. We need to take care of our own people first. That is not such a bad policy. I believe in helping other countries and other people, but when 60% of Americans only have $400 in a savings account, we have $35 trillion in debt, maybe we close our border and close the door and fix our own damn problems. Take care. I wish everyone a healthy and productive 2025. Remember, the month of December is the time to business plan for your 225 success. Take care.